The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. The greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it? Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Hello there, welcome along to the Football Show. Later on, we'll bring you Premier League Liverpool 11 as picked by David Myler and Nathan Murphy on OTBAM this morning. But first, our welcome voice returning to the Football Show. It has been a while. Hello, Kenny Cunningham.
Afternoon, Joe. You well?
I'm very well. I know we had some technical issues. Can you see me or no?
Thankfully, no.
Well, I can see you. It looks like...
Unfortunately for you, yeah.
It looks like you're about 30 feet from the sun. What kind of lighting situation have you got going on there?
It's not a good look, is it?
I mean, you're a bit better there, You're looking good, you're looking trim, you're looking fit. How's life treating you?
Yeah, not too bad, Joe. A bit fed up, to be honest with you, the last couple of weeks. I think it's got to me a little bit. I'm banished from my homeland. Leo won't let me over, won't be flying to Dublin, unless I quarantine myself in a dark closet for 2 weeks, sucking me thumb. So I'm a little bit upset with that. It's probably the longest I've been out of Dublin, I think, in about, it must be 20, 25 years since this kind of lockdown started. I can't remember a time, 3 months is it? Start to mid-March to now, probably a 3-month period where I haven't been back bouncing around the main streets of Dublin. So, yeah, hopefully that'll change over the next couple of weeks. If you have any people on the inside, Joe, have a word with you.
I'll get them to make a special dispensation just for you. And when you say you're getting fed up, I must admit I'm surprised to hear that. I thought, genuinely, not pulling your leg here, I thought you'd thrive perfectly in these conditions. Read a few books, watch a bit of TV, watch some movies, a few walks. I thought you'd like the quiet life. Yeah,
no, it's true. Yeah, I've been down that road, but you can only go around in that circle. So I do that lap so many times. I mean, the golf courses are open. And the weather over here, you know, I'm based in the UK, the weather's been kind of more or less spectacular for the past couple of months, so no complaints there. So, yeah, I've been playing a bit of golf the past couple of weeks, and clearly, obviously, the football's coming back next week. That'll help. But, yeah, I think we're on our way out, aren't we? We're kind of baby steps forward, but I think everybody's kind of itching just to move forward maybe a little bit more quickly than we are. So, yeah, hopefully we get there. We're on our way.
Last time I saw you, you were on the morning show with the lads talking about your favourite British comedies. It was really good, really enjoyed it. People should watch it back still if they haven't seen it.
I forgot. I wouldn't recommend it. I forgot about it. It's good. I was getting texts off people, a couple of people, not lots of people, obviously, but that night saying, "Oh, how come you never mentioned them?" And I did. I must have forgotten at least about a half a dozen or more strong contenders in terms of British comedy. So it probably strengthened my argument somewhat. The likes of Blackadder, Joe, sitcoms like that, which totally went down my head. But yeah, the lads gave me a hard time.
Saw that. There was a lot of catchphrases, a lot of canned laughter in your choices. It was of an era. Can I give you one that I saw just last week? I was pretty late to it, but it's really good if you haven't seen it. Have you seen Fleabag?
No, funnily enough, no, I haven't seen it, Joe. But I actually switched on like best. There's a load of comics sat around the table on one of the Sky channels, and they were debating actually the top 30 best British comedians. I think it was, and the female actress in that actually got a mention. I'd never heard of a Fleabag, but yeah, they spoke very highly of it, and I liked actually from what I heard of it, kind of resonated a little bit, and I did earmark it and say if I got an opportunity, I'd have a look at it. I can't find it though. It's not on Netflix. I've done well to dig out Netflix the past couple of months. So, yeah, anything else, Amazon or Prime, or I'm struggling a little bit, to be honest with you, in terms of trying to access it. So we'll get around to it, especially if it gets your recommendation.
Especially. I'll be in touch. I'll help you find it one way or another, trust me. And I came to it late. It is so good. It's right up there. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the actress. I wasn't too aware of her either. She wrote the whole thing. And it's just sublimely good. It's fantastic. It really is. And she's hot property at the moment. I was just reading about her afterwards. So for this year, next year and the year afterwards, anything that Phoebe Waller-Bridge writes goes on Amazon Prime. They've paid for the privilege. And for that privilege, they're giving Phoebe Waller-Bridge 18 million per year for the next 3 years. That's the hot property that she's become after this.
Wow, amazing, yeah. Yeah, very talented, obviously actress and writer, like you've said, like hugely talented. Funny enough, someone in that ilk, I suppose, I might have mentioned it on the show with the lad, but I've been watching it with the lads. I've been watching a few of them since the royal family. I probably mentioned, I can't remember if I mentioned to the lads at the time, but Caroline Aherne.
Yeah.
She was the same in terms of like actress, and obviously she wrote everything in alongside her co-star in that. But she was like supremely talented, I thought. You know, the kind of the dialogue, and even as an actress, you know, very natural on screen, very clever, funny. And the script itself, some of the dialogue in that royal family is absolutely fantastic. Now, Fleabag might be obviously slightly different in terms of where it's set or whatever. I'm not sure, but yeah, same type of thing, like supremely talented kind of writer stroke actresses. You
mentioned the football, so it's back in 8 days. Are you itching for this? Premier League returns, like there's about 3-4 games most days. Are you going to be sitting down watching a lot of it? I'm in two minds. It'll be great to have it back, but there's a lot of meaningless games on the horizon as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward, but to be honest with you, Joe, it's been such a kind of negative spin around it in terms of the last month or so around the return of the football. Honestly, it's kind of deflated me a little bit. I mean, clearly the majority of the players are very keen to get back and play. I'd imagine that's the case. I'd imagine like 80% plus of the players desperate to get back and play. That certainly would have been the case in my time. I'm sure it's the case now with the players. But I'm not being funny. Every time I switched on that telly, switched on Sky News, Sky Sports, all I was hearing about, all they were rolling in front of the cameras were players who were just like whinging and like big concerns and how stressed they were and mentally they were struggling and, you know, having a real issue in terms of the game coming back. And it kind of really put a negative spin on me for me. And I just felt as if it was lopsided totally in terms of the argument. I remember listening to Glenn Murray, it was, I think, one morning, and they got up and was eating me band flakes and they rolled out Glenn Murray, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing, to be honest with you. I mean, he was saying, look, I don't think supporters realise that, you know, if we go back to the training ground, I mean, there's going to be no food. I mean, there's going to be no kitchen. Nobody will be making our food for us. And I was like, oh my, am I actually hearing this correctly? Bring a sandwich with you. What's the matter with you? Yeah, and not only that, it's, you know, there's no ice baths. Our cryogenic chamber won't be available to us after training, and even getting a strapping's not going to be easy. And honest to God, I was scratching my head thinking, really, have we come to this? Hopefully this isn't the attitude of the majority of the players. I'm sure it isn't, but this was all we were being fed. A lot of players with huge concerns about coming back, huge issues, big issues they had in terms of, you know, their protection, their health, and it was too much for me. I actually got the hump with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But thankfully, common sense has kind of prevailed. Eventually, they've kind of got the players back on the training pitch. It was always going to be the case. As soon as the players got back into their normal working environment, it's kind of all habits die hard, and you know, and it's kind of quickened up since then. You know, players have accepted the reality of the situation. Have understood that, in fact, they're in a very privileged position. They're most protected industry in the country. So I think it took a lot of the players a long time to actually realise that, and they just needed to knuckle down and get on with it, you know, and trust the people around them, trust the government, trust the people in the immediate vicinity, the medical people at the football club who have their best interests at heart, and just get on with it. So hopefully we've managed to do that, and they can be back next week, and I am looking forward to it.
Yeah. I hadn't heard the Glen Murray one. I mean, I'd seen some players, like Troy Deeney was talking about how he had a 5-month-old baby who had respiratory issues, and he was also talking about the different rates of infection and seriousness in BAME population across the country, and they seem like very legitimate concerns. But if Glen Murray's talking about no one to make him breakfast when he goes into training and how's he meant to function, then yeah, I'm with you in that camp.
Yeah, but to be fair, Joe, Troy Deeney was also talking about, I've asked the medical staff, they haven't given me answers to some of my questions. And well, what are those questions, Troy? Well, why can we not go and get our hair cut in the barbers, but we're expected to come in and train at the training ground. And I was thinking, well, hold on, Troy. I mean, you go to a barber's, you're in a very confined space for a start, in very close proximity to the person who's actually cutting your hair, who's actually coming into physical contact with you. Whereas at the training ground, certainly for the initial first week coming back to training, you're not in particularly close proximity to people. You're training individually, and you're training in the outdoors. You're in the outside air. There's distance between yourself and the other players, and the risk of actually being infected in that type of environment is negligible. So that's the difference. Like, you know what I mean? So I didn't hear a lot of intelligence, to be honest with you. A lot of players have been rolled out, but for me, they're making that time little or no sense whatsoever. I take your point, Troy Deeney and his young child, and absolutely, in that type of situation, the young child has to be kind of protected. But in that situation, surely you take yourself out of that environment. You book yourself into a hotel. I'm sure he's has enough money in the bank. He's maybe got a second property. There's an easy solution to that. The child's welfare, if that's the case, has to come paramount. I understand that. But there is obvious solutions to that. So you're giving that example. There was a Glenn Murray there, and there was numerous others. Where for me, like, a lot of players were talking absolute gibberish.
Yeah, I didn't hear all of them. I'll defend Troy Deeney to the hilt, because I mean, if you have a 5-month-old who's not well and you're being asked then, as you say, potentially go and stay in a hotel or somewhere else and leave your wife and newborn child alone, for what? Like, that was Troy Deeney's point. Why are we doing this? This is just about money. And like, long term, we're going to be fine. We don't need to finish this league. This is just so we can unlock another £1 billion so we can spend it on stupid transfer fees and stupid wages anyway. Like, whatever earning losses there are at the moment, we can just borrow against that down the line. There'll be TV money coming in. So, like, on the one hand, I definitely understand what you're saying. On the other hand, and I'm not lumping them in with Glenn Murray, but when somebody said, look, hang on here, explain to me really why we're doing this, as Deeney was trying to say, I thought the uncomfortable answer for football was, well, Troy, the answer is money. And, he held a bit of a mirror up to that, and I thought that was no harm as well.
That's obvious, Joe. It's perfectly obvious. Like, it's not like Eureka, we're coming back for the money. We all know the football's coming back for the money. They can't have it both ways. You can't take these astronomical. There wasn't too many of these players saying, look, I'm prepared to stay away from my football club. I value my family's life and my own personal wealth above anything else, monetary value. But there wasn't too many prepared to walk away from their wages during this period of time. This kind of 3-6 month period, of players were prepared to step away from the game until the environment they felt was safe to come back. But they weren't going to give up their wages.
No, that's true. That's true. He was. I'm making this too much about Deeney. He was. But yeah, no, that's true in the main. Chelsea players, for instance, said,
yeah,
no,
but generally speaking, and there was a few more, like, I mean, the boy Aston Villa, like, was very strong in terms of the argument you just made, was the Tyrone Mings.
Yeah. In
terms of, it's all about money, we're just commodities. Well, you're not, maybe not commodities, but you're employees. You're paid a wage for the service. Just like people who work in offices are commodities of the company. Now, people who turn up to work in the trains or buses, are commodities. It's just another word from employees. You can get turned up for work, you get paid a wage. Everybody's in the same boat. Footballers are just slightly different in terms of play, and that's astronomical way. So for me, a lot of players actually struck the wrong tone completely. And I think the actual players, generally speaking, I know players are very good and they do a lot of charity work in the background privately, unseen, and credit to them for that. But I think as a group, the footballers as a group, I think they missed the boat. I don't think they've come out as very well at all.
Right.
I think very quickly in this crisis, when the football was stopped, I would have loved to have seen the players at every football club immediately come out and say, wherever club it was, and say, look, every employee at this football club, don't worry, we're going to look after you for the next 2, 3, 4 months, wherever it is until we get going again. We're going to cover your wages. Not the owners, certainly not the government, the furlough scheme, because the government in effect is like the taxpayers. We're not going to look to our neighbours to pay your wages. We're not even going to look to the club owner, despite the fact the club owner may have that money sitting in his bank account. We're going to take responsibility ourselves to pay your wages. We're going to look after you. I think the football clubs who had done that, and as I understand that nobody's done it, I know certain football clubs are taking cuts and certain deferrals, but no football clubs actually come out and said to its employees, don't worry about your wages, don't worry about paying the bills. We're gonna look after you. And if any club had done that for me, they would have come out of this cycle actually strengthened, because the players at last would have actually backed up. The number of times that we hear from players, we're all in it together at this football club. It was a great relationship. People who work in the kitchens, the scouts, the people who sweep up around the place, we're all in it together. This was the one opportunity for the players in the most dire circumstances to actually back that up. Talk is cheap. To actually stand up and say, no, when you really need us, we're going to step in. And the brutal truth of the fact is they didn't. The players didn't step up. The PFA got involved and kind of muddy the waters. One or two clubs kind of deferred wages, and there were small cuts here and there. But generally speaking, Joe, that kind of ship sailed. And I thought it was poor, and I thought it was a real opportunity missed for the players to make a real statement in this type of scenario, unique scenario, to really step up and kind of back up those employees at the football club, and they kind of delegate responsibility to other people, to the government, furlough, and the owners of the football clubs generally. And I thought that was a shame. That was a real opportunity missed.
Have you been watching much Bundesliga?
Yeah, I've watched a bit of it, Joe. First couple of games, first weekend, and I've dipped my toe in since. I enjoyed the German football. I've been watching it for a while. The last couple of years, Joe, I've been regular enough in terms, because I've enjoyed the football over there, particularly a lot of the young players. I think there's been a policy over there for some years in terms of bringing some of the best, not just German talent, obviously, best young talent around Europe into Germany. And we've seen that the likes of Jadon Sancho and one or two others. So for the last couple of years, I've really enjoyed the quality of the German football. There's a real kind of tactical element to the game, Joe. You can really see that when you watch those German teams play, that they're actually very well coached, and I can actually understand why young players are maybe drawn to that country in terms of maybe their development and, improving their knowledge of the game and just their general development as footballers. Because I think they're very well prepared in terms from a tactical point of view to teams. You can have different formations, etc., and just each individual player's role within the team, how each team functions. You can see there's kind of a clear pattern to play there, and there's clear work being done on the training pitch. So I can understand why a lot of young players, have decided maybe to make the step over to Germany in terms of looking to improve as players. And I think the quality is good. It's really good, Joe. Bayern Munich, obviously, at the moment, are playing great. They're not the perfect team, but they're as strong as anybody around the moment. They're in good shape, in my opinion, for that kind of Champions League. But even around that, there's some great talent sprinkled around the top kind of 6 clubs, even kind of Mönchengladbach and Leverkusen. The lad at Havertz at Leverkusen is a wonderful player. He hasn't just popped up the last couple of weeks. He's been playing at that level for some time now. Wonderful, lovely footballer, left-foot player. You've probably seen him play. Yeah. Outstanding player. I'd love to see him. Love to see him over in the Premiership the next couple of years. I think it's the type of player for me. I think Liverpool really would cover. I know that the Wenger transfer, Timo Werner, has kind of slipped through their fingers at the moment. But for me, Werner wasn't the right fit for Liverpool. There's no place for him to play at Liverpool. Werner, it's as simple as that. When the 3 boys are fit up front, there's nowhere for him. You don't pay 55 million for a player and sit him on the bench. Where the likes of Havertz, he can play, and he can play as an 8, one of the midfield 3, and he can play anywhere across the front line as well. Amazing versatility for somebody so young. So he's the one for me. I think the top clubs, Liverpool in particular, if they do go big, maybe not this season or next, he's potentially the one. Right. But there's loads of them, Joe, isn't there? There's loads of them strewn around. So I have, answer to your question, but
he was linked with United and Madrid over the weekend, but I mean that changes very quickly, those kind of transfer rumours. I wanted to ask you though, if you'd noticed, that's great that you've watched it for years, so you have something to compare it to. For instance, the home percentage winning rate has dropped down to 21%, which is quite extraordinary without the fans in the stadium. How have you found it as a TV viewing experience without the fans? You probably found the fans an annoyance anyway watching, did you? You like the perfect quietness so you can really concentrate on the football.
I didn't mind it at all. And you're right, I did get sick of it. I mean, that initial, listen to people after that first round of games in the Bundesliga. Yeah, well, it went bad. Yeah, but it's just no crowd. It's just not the same. And we know it's not the same. That's obvious. Of course, it's not the same. There's no crowd, except you knew that before you switched on your TV. But talk about the football. If I actually look at just forget about that and just concentrate on the quality of the football, for me, it was very good.
Right.
I was listening to a couple of the commentators. Yeah, it's a bit slow. Start first 10 minutes has been very slow. Yeah, I mean, it's par for the course. Like it's par for the course. Most games during the season, like, can have a relatively slow start to the game before the game finds its rhythm, etc. So again, this kind of thing of that's not football. Though of course it was football. I had no problem with it, to be honest with you. I actually really enjoyed it. I found the quality tempo of the games very good. The energy levels, a lot of players quite dynamic, moved the ball well. So I thought the actual quality, the football from a technical point of view, even the physical levels of the players, I thought it was actually very good from the get-go. I was really impressed. And that kind of lends itself to the point I made earlier, just in terms of how well prepared generally German teams are, not just in terms of the technical side, but also in terms of their physical conditioning as well. So no, I've been really impressed with it.
Wayne Rooney wrote a piece in the Sunday Times about captaincy. So Wayne Rooney's been writing for the Sunday Times for a while now, Kenny, and each week he picks a different topic. One week it was unsung heroes, and he wrote about players like Ji-sung Park and how they're so important. Another week it was about the art of being a striker, and he talked about various aspects of being a striker. And at the weekend he wrote about captaincy, the way captaincy has changed, the different types of captains he played under. I know you had a glance at the piece as well. So I wanted to pick your brain on a few things. Captaincy has different levels of importance in different footballing countries and different leagues. You were captain, as far as I know, so certainly under Brian Kerr for Ireland, and then at Birmingham under Steve Bruce. Were you captain elsewhere as well?
Yeah, I would have been captain at Wimbledon the last couple of years at Wimbledon before I moved up to Brum. Yeah, I would have been. Yeah, I can't remember what age it was. It would have been kind of maybe mid to late 20s, probably, when I got the captaincy to Wimbledon. And then, I would have captained at Birmingham after that, Joe, and for a short period up at Sunderland, maybe me last year. So, yeah, I suppose maybe for that second period of my career, I was lucky enough to carry the armband, yeah.
I get a feel for what you do on the pitch. Tell me about captaincy off the pitch and how important the role is.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a degree of importance attached to it, Joe. I think it can be dependent on the makeup of the squad, to be honest with you. You can walk into some dressing rooms and it's a very kind of experienced, kind of battle-hardened group of players, where really the role of the manager or the captain may not be a particularly important or an influential one, because you've got so many leaders, experienced players, vocal players maybe in the dressing room anyway. Whereas you might find yourself, which I did at times during my career, in a dressing room with a very young average age of players. I remember at Wimbledon when we got relegated after the period of time, a lot of maybe the older players on the big earners would have left. And we obviously started the following year in the championship, a very young group of players, quite talented actually, with a core group of players like I think it was Nigel Rio-Coker, kind of Joby McAnuff, Jason Ewell, players like Damien Francis. Those names may register a few people, but very talented, but very young group of players. And that dynamic was slightly different. I think in that kind of situation where you've got young players, quite immature, in from a personal point of view in terms of their football and knowledge and kind of are developing as people and players, then maybe your role becomes a little bit more influential in that respect. So I think it's kind of dependent to some extent on the makeup of on the dressing room. But I think the basic kind of fundamentals are the same, I think.
Like Rooney talked about different things. For one thing, he said you're often the link between players and management. He wrote, at one club, I was asked to go and tell the manager his training sessions were not good enough. Now that's not an easy one, he said. Excuse me, Gaffer, the lads think your training's shit. So would you, when you were captain, have been the go-to man for the manager? He would sound you out and how the dressing room's feeling. Equally, if the dressing room weren't happy with things, was a captain's job to communicate that?
Yeah, I think it would be, but I think it can be overplayed. That I think the relationship with the manager, I think it helps if you have a healthy relationship with the manager. Kind of lines of communication are there, Joe. But for me, the relationship with the dressing room and your teammates was the most important one as a captain. I always felt that was, if you got on with the manager, all well and good. If you could have those kind of conversations, where you the go between, yeah, of course you were, but generally speaking, they're quite trivial things, Joe. And in the general, the general consensus, they weren't overly that important. Quite kind of meaningless stuff at times in terms of travel, this and that. The really thing's a little bit different. Going up and tell your manager like the coaching's crap, like, you know what I mean? It's not good enough. That's a little bit more delicate. I understand that, but generally speaking, it was kind of trivial stuff. You go to the manager, which is quite unimportant, to be honest with you. So for me, like a captain, the only relationship that mattered was really with the group, that you had that you had to respect the players. That was the most important thing. And I remember once reading a comment. There was a quote, and I think it was attributed to Bobby Robson. I think he was asked, not so much the importance of the captain, but how he's viewed amongst the players. Something of that, the question of that ilk, like, and he responded. It was quite a simple thing he said. He said, well, I think the most important thing as the captain, he says, is when you speak to the players, your words carry weight. And that was it, really. So it was quite a simple thing, like. But the more I thought about it, the more it kind of resonated, like, you know what I mean? And because you start thinking, well, if your words carry weight, what does that actually mean, your words carry? It's not just the fact players are listening to, every player listens to their captain, but words that actually resonate, they take on board, and it actually has a kind of they act upon them, and it actually has a positive effect. Why would they do that for one captain and not another? So that makes it a little bit more interest. And then you have to think about, well, does respect play a part in how the players view the captain, how he presents himself, the type of person that he is? Do they trust him? Has he kind of got their back? How he carries himself, how he treats people, and we haven't even spoken about his qualities as a player yet. All of those things then maybe become talking points. But I always thought that was an interesting one when I heard Robson speak. I thought it was kind of very astute what he said. It kind of stayed with me a little bit, because I always felt really the armband was nothing if you didn't really have the respect the players. Simple as that. And when I say the respect, I mean really more as a human being, really. If you didn't have that, really, for me, the armband was kind of, it was meaningless. It was pure tokenism. It was no point of wearing it, really. So that was. So I've never really spoken. It was never a big topic conversation. What makes a great captain and what doesn't? But I think there's certainly facets to it. If I had to break it down, I think there's certain kind of boxes that you would tick in terms of what would constitute maybe the perfect captain. People see it differently, of course, and certain players respond to kind of different things in people. I understand that, but I think generally speaking, there's certain attributes there which kind of do make up what most people consider to be maybe kind of perfect captain material.
I guess being captain of the country is an extra honour, an extra responsibility. You're representing the country. You're of a select number of people, really. In the last 100 years, how many captains of Ireland have we had? It's an ambassadorial role. It's a role of importance. Everyone knows who the Irish rugby and football captain is around the country. They just know. Did any of those things cross your mind when you were made Ireland captain? Did that feel like an extra honour, or do you stop and think about those things when you're a player? Maybe you don't. Maybe
not stopping. It was a huge honour. It was the proudest moment of me.
Do you remember how you were asked or told?
Yeah. And Mick's on the coach. So we were just after the training session, we were jumping off the coach, and Mick just held the coach for 10 seconds and just announced that I was captain, and the lads were. It was actually a round of applause. I think was the lads were throwing bottles of water at me, etc., and all that type of thing. But it was.
And he had spoken to you in advance of that, I presume.
No, I don't think so. No, he hadn't actually. No, he hadn't. No. So so that was pretty much the pinnacle. Of course, it was. But I was very proud of it. It's slightly different, Joe. I think the captaincy at international level, club level. I mean, really club level.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I just get my head around this for a second? So, wait, when is this? What year is this again that you're made captain?
It would have been after. I'm guessing it would have been. Well, it would have been just after the World Cup, Joe. Wouldn't it? 2002. So it would have been maybe the first friendly game or something. Okay. August maybe, because Mick wasn't around too long. He made me captain, and
So you're
Bless
you're,
him.
you're sitting you're sitting on the bus with everyone, and Mick steps up to announce the captaincy, and you're looking around to see who it is as well, are you?
Yeah, but it wasn't a case of a drum roll like everybody's looking around.
Was it like an X Factor thing? Did he tell people who weren't? You're not the captain. Next.
He got the name out. He got the name out pretty quick. But to be honest with you, he could have easily picked at least half a dozen players. When you get to that level, international level, that kind of elite level, Joe, we captains are literally. I know it's a cliche thing.
Sure.
We captains all over the pitch, but we literally had. And Gary Breen was club captain. Mark Kinsler, Matty Holland, respective club captains. Clearly, Roy, obviously, Robbie went on to be club. Gary Kelly, all of these players. So we'd captains like all over the pitch.
No, I get that. But so for a second, he announces, because I've never heard you talk about this. He announces this, bottles of water, bit of slagging, and then it calms down for a second. Tell me how you're feeling on the rest of that bus ride home, because I'm sure you're thinking, I'm going to call people in my family. It is an amazing honour.
No, I wasn't on the phone calling people or anything like that. No, it wasn't.
You just didn't tell anyone, did you not?
One of those things you feel it inside. You're just immensely proud, like, you know what I mean? So no, it wasn't a big thing. Get into the hotel and had a shower and got on with things, and that was it. You know what I mean? But you talk about maybe a weight of responsibility. I wouldn't even say that so much, because I was in a very privileged position there. And so I've always said it with Ireland, just in terms of quality of players you have around you, in terms of technically how good they were, in terms of the personalities, characters. So those players made things very easy for me. Forgetting about the captain's armband, for putting that to the side, you know. So that was a very the environment I was in. You know, I was very fortunate. You know, we all helped each other out. Although I say international football is different to club football, of course it is, Joe. But that was probably as close as you get. Those times in the Irish international setup are probably as close as you're going to get, in terms of having that kind of club mentality and being as close as we were during that period of time under Mick and even Brian. So we're very fortunate in that respect. And the captaincy was made easy. The players made it easy for those reasons. They really did. I was just very conscious of the fact that, look, my performance levels. People say, in terms of captaincy, I've heard people say, does he have to be the best player in the team? And I don't think he has to be the best player in the team, but I think it helps, because I think when people think of it,
did it help you being the best player in the team, do you think?
Clearly I didn't fall into that category. I don't think I even fell into the middle group of players. I was clearly towards the runt of the litter in that respect. But I don't think he has to be the best player, but I think it helps, because a player who can give that kind of lead, not just leadership on the pitch, but kind of inspiration at times in terms of just performance levels, Joe. Somebody who can maintain a high level of performance, game in, game out, whether it's at club or international level, that's actually hugely inspiring as a player, to see your teammate achieve those levels. If it's a centre forward who's captain, he's knocking in the goals. If it's a central midfielder who's imposing himself in that area of the pitch, he's controlling the game, the rhythm of the game. You know, if it's a centre half, he's that imperious presence at the back, you know, mopping everything up, whatever it is. Goalkeeper, you know, brilliant, can't be beaten in the goal. I think that's the kind of ideal if you're actually that good. But I think not everybody, certainly I wasn't fortunate enough to have those skills. So obviously you're looking at a level you need to maintain I was very conscious of the fact I needed to maintain a certain level of performance, game in, game out, no exceptions really. Kind of focus had to be right, and just concentration levels. I just had to maintain that level, that kind of 6.5, 7 out of 10, you know, game to game. The very minimum I needed to produce that. So that was it. I was very conscious. Conscious of that, and clearly that's the factor. Some people say that's the biggest factor as a captain. All that matters is what you do on the pitch on match day. You know, 3 o'clock to 4:45. That's it. That's what it's all about. But for me, it was more than that. I can understand why people make that argument. For me, a good captain for me earned the spurs as well. Maybe before the game, halftime, and even after the game. Joe, in terms of, it wouldn't have to be a constant ranter, prior to the game, constantly talking, etc. But when the moment was right at the appropriate time, maybe just might be some words prior to the game. Certainly at half time, where always impressed me, Joe, was a player who would come into the dressing room, maybe come in after the first half. The team hasn't played well, you haven't been functioning correctly. And before the manager or the coach stood up to speak, the captain would step up. And he'd say, and it wouldn't be a shouting and screaming match. It wouldn't be a case of this is rubbish, that's crap, you're crap, we're better than this. All of those standard kind of cliches, which by and large really don't work. Players hear them far too often, has very little effect. But a player who could stand up, and predominantly a captain, could stand up and say, listen, lads, that's not good enough. And these are the reasons why. 1, back 4, 10 yards too deep. We need to get ourselves higher up the pitch. Centre midfielders taking too many touches on the ball, too slow. Let's move the balls quickly. 2 centre forwards too far apart. You've got to be closer. Wingers, keep yourself as close to the touchline as you can. Spread the pitch across. Fullbacks, get your crosses earlier into the box. Our centre forwards are making runs. The ball's not arriving. So somebody who could actually analyse the game, despite the fact they've been part of it and the game's been happening all around them, but had kind of the football and intelligence, was clever enough to see where the actual problems were, come into the dressing room and very calmly offer that information to other players. I found that hugely impressive, and that doesn't happen too often. So for me, a captain as well kind of earned the spurs at those moments immediately, I'd say, prior to the game. Might have been a motivational speak of sorts at times. Certainly at half time, which is always a key moment of the game. After the game is too late, the game's over. Damage may be done. But those moments as well as kind of the influence on the pitch, those moments for me in and around the game were very much, that was a factor for me as well. And probably the last factor then is actually how you carried yourself around the club, around the training pitch during the week, in the hotel with the players or wherever you were travelling together. Kind of how you kind of interacted with the players, with the group, and what kind of environment you helped to create with the manager, coaches, and everybody else. But that kind of healthy, nurturing environment at the football club, where really every player enjoys coming into training, enjoys each other's company, enjoys the training, enjoys working hard, feels as if they're in an environment where they can kind of really progress and be themselves and open up, not be too concerned if I make a mistake, I'm going to get a criticism here. He's going to come for me, and he doesn't like me, he's going to come for me, I better be careful, you're on edge a little bit. So that was the third part for me, and probably something which isn't spoken about a huge amount.
But it's something I could see you being very good at, because even your natural personality, even when you come in here, and I don't know if it's a conscious thing that you do or not, or it's just a habit of a lifetime, but when you come in here, you will say hello to everyone out in the office. There might be 10 lads sitting around doing work on their PCs, conversation, bringing different people into the conversation, firing a slag or a bit of crack around the place and lifting the general mood, so that's something, again, I don't know if you're conscious of, but that I can see you being very good at as captain. Can I ask you, and apologies if you've been asked this before and it's not, the point of this conversation, but it is a very specific one to you when it comes to captaincy, because I wouldn't envy this if I was in your situation, where when Roy comes back and you're Ireland captain and then you're kept on as Ireland captain, and he's such a unique kind of figure, and there's been the fallout from '02, and is Roy captain, is he not captain, blah blah blah, everyone's talking about it. Was that delicate / uncomfortable for you? Do you remember the time?
Yeah, I do remember the time. I won't betray too many confidences. Obviously I had conversations with Brian about it. Brian was very active behind the scenes in getting Roy back into the squad. That took a little bit of time, and kind of understandably so. And he kind of took me into his confidence a little bit, Brian, and that was appreciated. He didn't have to, to a certain extent, it wasn't largely my business. That was kind of Brian's decision he made, but for understandable reasons, for Roy's qualities. But you are right, it was a little bit delicate, him coming back into the squad. I did have a conversation with Brian about it. And what I did say to him, I'll be honest with you, it's not a massive big secret. I did say to him, look, Brian, there's no issue with me if Roy comes back and he comes back as captain of the team. I had no problem with that whatsoever. I mean, ego never came into it. Like I explained to you, I was immensely proud to lead the team. But the way I interacted with the players and around the squad, it didn't really matter. I had the armband on. I wouldn't change how I kind of worked with the players, the kind of relationship that I had with the players. So I'd no problem with that. I suppose the only issue, being perfectly honest, I suppose the only thing that was in the back of my mind with Roy coming back as captain potentially was how it would be viewed by the rest of the players. Because I think, generally speaking, the players are more than happy for Roy to come back for obvious reasons, Joe. But to come back and immediately come back as captain of the team, having been out of the team for a period, and obviously the circumstances how we left the squad. I mean, I don't know. I didn't speak to players individually about this. It wasn't really my business, to be fair. That was down to Brian was the manager, and he had to make a decision. But Brian was very astute with things like this, and I'd be very surprised if Brian didn't give a little bit of thought to the effect, the perception amongst the players. Not Roy coming back. That was pretty obvious, but actually coming back as captain. And maybe, there's some experienced players there in the squad as well. And maybe how that would be perceived, maybe amongst a couple of the players. Now, that's only me speculating. And if maybe Brian felt, great to have Roy back in the team, the boys would love to see him back. But to bring him back and immediately to bring him back and put the armband on his arm, he might have given some thought in terms of how that would have been perceived by maybe a couple of the players. So I think that's probably the only reason maybe why Roy didn't get the armband. Was he deserving of it? Obviously so, because of the type of player that he was. But me personally, I had absolutely no problem. That wasn't because the armband didn't matter to me. Of course it was. It was a huge honour. But it was... in that circumstance, it didn't matter. I said he wasn't going to kick up a fuss. That was the right thing. If Brian decided that was the right thing, that's the avenue he wanted to go around, I would have had no problem with it. Yes. I'm sure the players would have rallied around Roy and we would have got on with it. But he didn't. Brian made his decision. I'm not exactly sure how Roy felt about it. I don't know if he's mentioned it. I know he's done a couple of books. I'm not sure if he's mentioned it. I haven't kind of read them, but
he did. He said he was a bit surprised he wasn't made captain, but I don't think he kicked up major fuss about it either. He didn't say it was a disgrace or anything like that. He said it was...
No, not at all. No, I can understand that. I think that's fair. I'd been surprised if he wasn't surprised that he wasn't made captain, because we all know the reasons why. But if you're asking me why not, Brian would obviously be the...
No, the logic makes sense. I mean, you bring him back, but you don't want to overdo things or put anyone's nose at a joint. They were very specific circumstances. And did you feel in any way self-conscious as captain with Roy there, or a little bit queasy about it, or were you able to just get on with the job and still enjoy the job the way you had when he'd been out of the squad?
Queasy when I walked into the room, to be honest, when he was captain and not captain. No, I suppose maybe there was maybe subconsciously there was a little bit of that. You know what I mean? And
it'd be very natural given who he was.
Yeah, it was and Roy's kind of presence around the place anyway. Yeah, you know what I mean. He could make things great. Roy could be great around the place. Don't get me wrong. Great sense of humour, very witty and things like that. Made it very easy around the dinner table. He could be great. The people and the lads would really love him, really enjoy his company. But there'd be times, and obviously that wouldn't be the case. You know what I mean? Maybe Roy wouldn't be as forthcoming. That kind of dark cloud would be over his head a little bit. That's just the way it was. Don't get me wrong. So I tried not to. I worked in my favour. I was a bit older at that stage, Joe. You know what I mean? I had a little bit more experience there. So those type of things. And maybe when I was younger, I hadn't got as much really kind of self-confidence, self-belief. Those kind of things would have maybe knocked me a little bit. I wouldn't have been able to deal with that. But at that time, whenever I was 30-odd years of age, in terms of your maturity levels as a person, more so really than as a footballer, you can kind of deal with those things a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, I know I understand the question, but that was the reality of the situation. Brian made his decision. Roy accepted it. He never kind of spoke to me about it. I didn't speak to him. And we kind of made the best of it. We kind of everybody knuckled down and got on with things, and that was it.
Very good, very interesting. Listen, good to talk to you again. So I'm sure I'll be talking to you in a couple of weeks. Well, the football's going to start pretty soon, so we'll probably be nagging you to talk about whatever matches you're watching at the weekend. in the meantime for the next 8 days. What are you reading or watching? What's keeping you going, even though you're a bit bored?
Yeah, I've dialed down the Netflix a little bit, to be honest with you. Absolutely jumped in there 2-footed when the lockdown started. So yeah, I've had to
There
wean
was
me.
steam coming out of Netflix, was there?
There was a little bit, to be honest with you. Well, funny enough, I suppose, a bit like everybody has, a couple of sports documentaries as well. Obviously, the Michael Jordan ones are very topical. That's very interesting, I suppose, in terms of captaincy and kind of leadership. I mean, that's probably a conversation in itself. But yeah, I've been up a little bit down me reading. Yeah, I've been through a couple of books, all right. I'm on a Joseph O'Connor book at the moment, but I'm out swinging the clubs at the moment, Joe. I'm back on. I've got the golf bug back.
Good.
So that could be a good or bad thing. I'm not too sure. That game's got the ability to actually destroy it. So I'm hoping I'll keep swinging it reasonably well.
Do. Listen, thanks so much for your time. Good to talk to you again. We'll see you soon, Kenny. Thanks a mil.
Cheers, Joe. Take care.